everyone, Alex Gray here, and welcome back to the International Classroom Podcast. Now, this December, it is the season of giving, so we're going to switch things up with something exciting. Conversations into the fascinating world of educational platforms. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to be showcasing 12 innovative platforms that are transforming education around the globe. From cutting-edge tools to ideas that are reshaping how we teach, you are going to get exclusive insights straight from the creators and visionaries behind these platforms. And of course, I've got a few extra surprises up my sleeve. So join me as we explore these technologies and discover how they are shaping education in our international classrooms. On to the episode. Alex, thank you ever so much for joining me on the International Classroom Podcast today. Whereabouts in the world do we find you?
I'm in Edinburgh, in Scotland. Moved up here only a few months ago.
I was about to say, because the discerning listeners there would have been like, you don't sound very Scottish. So how are you finding it so far, obviously a few months in?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy rainy, drizzly weather. So for me, this is kind of idyllic. But in all seriousness, it's nice having a city which is basically a big town, which is basically a village within a stone's throw away from some of those beautiful countryside in the UK. So it's a nice, for us, it's a nice mix of city life and country life.
There you go. So if National Geographic are listening, by the way, and want to throw anything our way, we can happily work with that.
Well, you say that, but then after the recent US elections, I know it's going out in December, but it's only just happened for us in real time. Google searches have spiked for Americans looking to move to Scotland. So I don't think National Geographic needs any help. It sounds like they're already on their way.
When this episode goes out, we'll add some stats in, shall we, in terms of the immigration. Let's see if Scotland, one of the airports, what the data they've got, they can show us about where people are coming in from. So what, in terms of introducing yourself, how would you like to introduce yourself to listeners and viewers today?
I don't know. I suppose I'm a professional bodger. I spent the last 10 years building things, typically technology companies. And before that, I worked in sort of a variety of different finance roles, so working on the investment side. So less excited about that part of my career, more excited about sort of the more recent sort of bodging part.
I love that's how you describe it, just bodging. That, by the way, we are international. People don't understand that term. It's a very British term. Yeah. What does that mean for you?
I mean, I suppose it means I've never really grown up. I think for international listeners, I assume Lego has been a prolific part of their growing up as well. I never really stopped building. It started with little models, and then it just became technology stacks. And I found a way to try and commoditize that building, or sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. But that part of my life has never really changed. I'm still a 4-year-old building models. They're just a little bit more complex and sexy now than perhaps they were back then.
And here's the sexy model, as you put it, that we're kind of brought us to this conversation today, and that's what we want to talk about. Take us through the backstory then of this prolific model that you've made. Sure.
I mean, so TAISK, the idea behind TAISK was to try and make stuff which was particularly sort of frontier, accessible to the average user. And so without sort of going back into sort of a long overdrawn history of AI or generative AI more recently, basically this sort of stuff has been around for quite a long time. It's only really in the last couple of years that people have started being able to utilize it for themselves. So like the big companies have been accessing this type of processes to get stuff done, to create new content, or to create augmentations to their existing systems, for ages. And so I set up TAISK around sort of 2 years ago now. We started building around, so about 2 years, just under 2 years maybe. And I got really excited about the idea that we could make very sophisticated systems useful for people from all walks of life. And so that was really sort of the original mission of TAISK. How can we get this into the hands of other people? And we chose teachers and schools to start off with because my partner was a teacher. There seemed to be a lot of teachers who had been kind of left behind by a lot of technology companies. I mean, EdTech is well known for creating things that people subscribe to and then forget to unsubscribe from. And there's a lot of noise and a lot of garbage out there. So TAISK was originally the idea to get very excited, sophisticated stuff in the hands of people who could hopefully do something useful with it.
Amazing. So obviously, let's say 2 years, 18 months we're into this journey. How's it been so far?
How's it been? I think, kind of relentless. I mean, as you say, I work and I've got sort of a lot of different things going on at the moment. But with regards to TAISK, I think it started off very exciting. We found it quite easy to create an application. So for those who don't know, TAISK is a free-to-use tool where you can create custom AI chatbots using any of the large language models. You can train it on your own data, whether that's files or websites. You can get it to do things like capture leads or become sort of a knowledge guide. And you can even create agents as well. So agents are, I suppose, the next layer of sophistication for AI modeling because they can actually do stuff while AI chatbots just talk about stuff. So yeah, it started off pretty exciting, and we built aggressively, but perhaps we sort of built foolishly. We built what we wanted, as opposed to sort of really understanding what our users wanted. So we've gone on a bit of a journey on that side, making sure that what we're bringing to bear on the product is actually useful for people, as opposed to sort of just exciting for us. So it's definitely been a little bit of a learning curve in terms of remembering who we're building this for. We're not building it for Alex and his sort of colleagues who are all sort of engineering based. We're building it for teachers, for small businesses, for entrepreneurs, for students.
Amazing. And I imagine that's very tricky because education on one side and for teachers probably has a very different want and a very different need to, let's say, small businesses or nurses or, anyone in different walks of life. How do you balance that then? How do you ensure that the platform is able to cover all those bases?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, it's not difference in that sense. It's sort of difference in terms of like the why. So a small business, particularly following on from the recent UK budget, where a lot of them are looking at employee costs and trying to work out how they can grow efficiently. They have a very different need to schools. Nothing that we provide a school is going to make a school any more money unless we can find ways to rent out classrooms or to generate courses that they can then sell or help them build schools around the world. I mean, nothing we create is going to sort of push the needle on that. So all we can do for schools and teachers is give them access to tools that are going to save them time or make their workload less laborious. So there's a different sort of why, but in terms of like the actual sort of application, it's relatively similar. So with a small business, they might create a chatbot trained on their data, hosted on their website to answer inquiries from potential leads that they can then capture and turn into sales. So that's going to help them make money. But the underlying technology is similar for a teacher who wants to utilize it or build their own application for, say, internal policy review or to help with Ofsted inspections. It's the same sort of technology that's sort of going into it. But the why is the only bit that really differs between the two.
So let's really sort of focus in then on the education side of things. From a TAISK perspective, obviously you're talking about the bots that you can make and obviously share. With the time that it's been used in education over these past sort of 2 years, 18 months, how have you found the educational tools received by teachers? What's been their feedback for you?
I think we've got a few camps that we're trying to learn from and to support. There are, I would say, there's a small camp who are loving it. I mean, just in terms of our schools that have subscribed to TAISK, I think of the dozens that have signed up, only one stopped their subscription, and even that was something that they're looking to renew in January. the churn is very low, which is a good sign for products. In terms of like the actual usage and user base, within a school, within a sort of a staff workforce, yeah, we'll typically see a small segment who are loving it. They love the fact that they can go in and build whatever they want to build with whatever model that they want to build it with. Like they can use Perplexity to use online information to support a course book from AQA to help them provide an incredible sort of study buddy that's up to date and current for their students. Or they could create sort of, we've had teachers who have created tools that allow you to take photographs of classrooms to get advice on how to sit certain pupils with special educational needs. So for that demographic, it's an insane application. For majority, it kind of then sort of splits into two camps. We've got one camp who I don't think they're interested, and that's cool. That's fine. I mean, we can't sort of force feed AI into every teacher's lexicon, and those that aren't interested, cool. And then it's the sort of the middle group that I'm really focusing on now. And that is the people who, they get it. They like the idea of AI helping them. They might use ChatGPT. They might be aware that that's got data security issues, but it's nice and easy to use, so they'll still use it anyway. But they're not really interested in the faff of building something and testing out different models because they've got work, and that's, again, the big problem with edtech companies historically, is that the learning curve for new users is so great that it puts a lot of people off. So that's the demographic within schools that we're really trying to support and ensure that they get much better value out of this type of technology.
Because you mentioned there obviously is about building bots. So originally people were like, oh, there must be coding, must be this instructions. And obviously GPTs came out, and we've seen obviously with Claude projects in terms of just giving this information or just describing to it how to do. With TAISK, for example, if I'm I am an educator, but if I'm wanting to build something to be used in my classroom, take me through it. What do I need to be doing, and how easy and effective can it be?
I mean, we're constantly trying to make it simpler, but at the moment, what happens, there's a box that comes up, and it asks you what you want, and you say, I want to create a study buddy for students on Tudor England. Click generate, and then that will set up all the conditions for that particular bot. You can then go in and fine tune it by, say, choosing different large language models. So there are quite a lot now of premium large language models out there, both open source and closed. That basically means some are built by companies, some are built by engineers who then sort of release it for free. And they have different strengths and weaknesses. And so being able to play with different large language models to get exactly the type of experience that you want is quite nice if you choose to. Beyond that, then you can customize it the way it looks, the way that it feels, the way that it talks, what language it talks in, how the avatars or icons look. You can train it on data. So you can upload a course book, you can upload many websites, and then you can embed it. And so what I mean by embedding is that sort of taking it from its current environment on TAISK and then putting it, say, on your website, or putting it onto a landing page as a chatbot, or even sharing it with students via the app. And so you can just give them the code, and then they'll only be able to access that particular chatbot. They don't have to have their own account at TAISK, which is, again, very important for data security and for any security, particularly for younger students. So yeah, it's that mix of customization, personalization, and then security that goes into making bots on TAISK useful for educators.
So just thinking then about, you obviously mentioned data privacy, data security. How is it you're ensuring that data security and privacy for the users and for their creations?
Yeah, there's a long answer and a short answer. I think in terms of long answer, I would ask people to refer to our data security policies on the website, where we've got full explanations for how we do it. But I think the first thing I say is that for anyone who's using any free tool, there's that wonderful Latin phrase, is it qui bono? Like, who benefits? So if they're making something free, why are they making it free? And it's going to fall into two campuses. So you're going to be like TAISK, because we hope you love it and you then want to subscribe so you can get more credit, so you can do more stuff on it. or it's because they're using your data, even if they say they're not. Like they might say that X company, insert name here of well-known brand, does not use your data for training purposes. They've got subsidiaries, they've got partners, and they'll be using your data. Otherwise, why are they giving it to you for free? So that would be my first point, is sort of understanding data security in terms of like why people are offering stuff as terms of free applications. So with TAISK, we're very transparent. We want you to become a subscriber because you like the product. So we have a free account. It's got a limit to how much you can use it. If you love it, fantastic, subscribe and use it more. And in terms of how we protect data, so the short answer is effectively that everything is siloed and encrypted. So what does that mean? It means that few people can access the data where it's stored. It's stored in EU servers, so we don't have anything in the US, which is important again because of the Patriot Act means that anything that you store in the US could be accessible by any third party or federal party, I suppose. And then encrypted. There's lots of different ways that you encrypt, but basically you turn it into gobbledygook, and then you have particular keys that then turn that gobbledygook back into something that something else can read, but it still won't be readable as a human being. So there's lots of ways that we go about ensuring data security, but I think my key takeaways, if you really care, read our info on the website because we go into a lot of detail on it because it's super important, and we work with some big companies who've obviously got lawyers who go through this stuff to make sure it's good. But yeah, the main takeaway is if stuff is free, just please ask yourself who benefits. And if you're uploading sensitive information, particularly on your students, to a free application, just think about what the worst case scenario is about how that data could be utilized.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things I kind of think about it in terms of if you Googled yourself, and people do, in terms of what's on the internet for you and what's out there. It's as simple as when someone goes, so for example, obviously when this comes out, we'll have done several different events and conferences will have taken place in the month of November. And everyone always goes, can you send me a bio? Can you send me a picture, a headshot, as it were? And that, you send it to them, not really thinking too much of it. But when I Google myself now, it's like there's headshots from different conferences, or there's numerous different things that crop up, and you think, oh geez, I never even thought about that coming up, or the I suppose the lack of thought sometimes that does go into what we share, how much we share, and then how people are using it for marketing and advertising, and that's just scratching the surface. It's one of those things that it pays to actually be aware of, especially from a school perspective with young students, educating them on obviously digital safety, internet safety, but also mirroring that as an institute and going, no, actually, yeah, we do have acts that we have to follow, but actually we need to be mindful of what we're doing with the data. And it also ties into...
Actually, you're right. But also, that's just a data you can see, by doing a Google search. As soon as you said that, I thought of Ed Balls. I don't know if you can remember his LinkedIn, or was it Twitter that he just wrote his own name into it. But he's not the first, probably a bit last. But that's just a visible data, in terms of images. Yeah. Then there's also the dark web. And then there's also the parameters behind the biases that exist in, you mentioned marketing, but again, if we just look at the recent US election, one of the big sort of aspects that they considered being a swing to Donald Trump's favor, whether you agree with his policies or not, was the explicit targeting of young men.
Yeah.
And if you think about the data that people are uploading into these environments, you can probably appreciate how those biases then might filter into things as obtuse as campaigning for presidential elections.
Well, you saw that. I saw a post yesterday about Kamala Harris, and she was running 2 different ads. So I think, again, looked like it was AI, but again, picking up that in one state, it was a different approach of how she would tackle, I think, the ongoing issues in the Middle East. And in another state, it was completely different. And CNN showed this. And again, there's been a lot of focus on media and marketing and the types of people they have tried to influence or tried to talk about. And it makes it exceptionally difficult for young people, I say any person, not just young people, to know what to believe. I think the recent statistic, and I say this to my students, 3 billion people get their media from the internet. So their news, everything out, 3 billion people will go to Facebook or TikTok or Instagram and capture their news from there. And it's scary about what's coming into that.
Absolutely. Cui bono, who benefits?
And that and you've kind of alluded by this. I think anyone who's listened to this and watched this is you resonate an ethical approach, very much so, in terms of what you're saying, how you're saying this, because that's one of the other things that people are concerned and raising questions about when it comes to AI platforms is the ethics of this in terms of the considerations and how they can ensure, whether we could do or not, a sustainable approach to it. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so what are my thoughts on the ethics? I suppose challenged on a daily basis, if I'm being totally honest with you. We are okay. So just to give you sort of a more sort of holistic impression about why I say it like that and almost sort of sigh. TAISK is part of TAISK Labs. So we're a company that build predominantly agentic AI, so that's AI that does stuff. And we mostly build that for big enterprises. So big companies that need some really clever stuff to help them automate autonomously stuff. And that's cool. We build some really cool stuff. And the reality is that cool stuff that we're building is looking both to augment their existing workforce so that they can do more with the existing people that they have. But conceivably, a lot of it's going to be working towards inevitably replacing people. So that side of things ethically is kind of concerning. So why do we keep doing it? It's not to chase a buck. We've got no investors. We're totally bootstrapped. We're comfortable and we enjoy building. But our attitude is that if we can get the big organizations to pay for the frontier R&D, like the really expensive stuff that takes a lot of engineering to work out how to build it, we can then package that up and we can make it accessible on TAISK.com. And so that's kind of how I sort of balance it. And we're in a really beautiful position where we can do that. We've got big companies paying us big dollars to build big tech. And unfortunately, we have a team who don't just want to chase the dollar. We also want to build stuff that is useful for those who don't have the big budgets to enjoy all this stuff. So we're trying to go back to the original mission of TAISK, which is making powerful AI accessible. And in doing so, what we hope is that if there is any fallout, which I suppose, frankly, is inevitable in the same way the loom disrupted weaving, or the steam engine disrupted horses. I'm not sure the horses care anymore, but or saved horses actually. But yeah, that's how we deal with that. Like if we can help schools who don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to build clever stuff by giving them technology that helps, amazing. But in terms of like the overall ethics, I do worry a lot, like a huge amount, both on a sort of a more sort of low level. So there's a lot of edtech companies who are usually using AI to build cool stuff. I worry a little bit about how much they understand the back end and what's really happening and things like data and data privacy and stuff. And on the high end, I do worry about what happens if we empower a few organizations with this enormous responsibility to provide AI or take us from the path to more sophisticated solutions. So yeah, sorry I rambled a bit there, but it's a really difficult question to answer. It feels a little bit like we've looked inside a box and I'm a little bit scared to tell you what's inside.
It's absolutely, I mean, for me, I think it's important to have the discussion about it and be willing to have the discussion about it, because I've sat through presentations from companies pitching AI products, and ethics is always going to be one. And if you follow enough people across X or LinkedIn, the predominant sources of information, specifically LinkedIn, like ethics and AI ethics is something that will always come up. And these are from people who are at the forefront of using it and training people and interested in it, but are also obviously like yourself, who use and are really at the forefront of driving these things, are very, very much aware of what can be positive and what could be dangerous. And it's a very fine margin between the two. And a lot of people out there, educators, students, businesses who are using AI, and I think probably just from what you mentioned, probably don't understand the complexities of how it works, the back end of it, versus then actually, do you understand the just sheer amount of power that's required to go into making this? It's like you say, people always want the outcome. They don't want the journey. No one's ever going to go up to Usain Bolt and go, I wish I had your journey. I wish I trained all those hours that you trained. They're going to go up to him and go, I wish I could run as fast as you. I wish I had the world records. I wish I had those gold medals. And I find it very much the same in this, in that people just want the outcome. People just want it to do that and make their life efficient and effective and easier and stop thinking, but aren't aware of, like you say, what's in the box.
And what's coming next? It's I mean, all technologies have this dichotomy, whether it's fire or a sword, as in a blade. They can be used both for extreme good and for extreme bad. I think the challenge that educators have in particular is that this is a very fast-moving technology, and they perhaps run the risk of falling behind their students in terms of application and utilization. Because there is a learning curve, and again, with TAISK being free, and you can play different models and play with and do different things. It still comes down to that basic application. Are you going to use this and you're going to find value out of it, or are you going to ignore it? Because the world that your students are going to inhabit in the near future is going to look completely different to the one that I inhabited when graduating, let alone the world that a majority of teachers inhabited when they eventually left, the great conveyor belt of education.
Yeah, it's very, when I was in school, very different. I mean, I still remember being taught in primary with OHPs and things like that. So thinking about that, obviously I'm curious as well, because we were just thinking about this more we talk about it, TAISK. Where did the name come from?
So you have a task and we want to put the AI into it. It's as simple and basic as that. But a lot of people think, especially now we're based up in Edinburgh, it's some sort of Scottish whiskey offshoot, which probably makes me more popular if I ever do go to a networking event. Then they find out I actually work in agentic AI now. Great. So maybe I should start a whiskey brand. But no, AI and TAISK.
Could you imagine that? Could you imagine if you actually got some AI to help with your distillery and it could check and use all the sensor information and, there you go. There's the future. That's the future. That's the future I want. AI making alcohol.
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. Big fan.
A friend of mine asked me the other day, because I was showcasing some of the GPT stuff we've been making for school, and he messaged me and said, "I just want something that's going to help me with food. I literally just want." And he's like, "Do you like?" He went, "I just want snack GPT." He said, "That's all I want. I want a GPT where it will find me recipes or tell me locations of food, a good food." He said, and that's it. Everyone's need for it is slightly different. And it just made me laugh in terms of we're going down this barrel of these complexities of, imagine, when it starts to automate these things for us, and which it's already doing, and movies and videos and all this deep coding, and we're now, simply going, I just want it to organize my calendar, and I just want it to sort out dinner for me.
Just want it to do the dishes.
Yeah. I just want it to organize my food shopping, type of thing. That's kind
all
of
of that stuff is, it's literally just around the corner. It's obviously, so again, the big evolution now is going to be from people using chatbots and going to agents or even assistants. And the difference between the three of those is stratospheric in terms of like their utilization, but actually relatively simple. So chatbots talk, you can give it some information and it can give you the impression that it's talking back to you. Agents are able to do specific tasks by integrating with different applications. So you can say, for example, find the weather in around the world and for the last 20 years and populate a spreadsheet. And it'll do the web search, it'll do the scraping, and it'll populate a spreadsheet. You can do all that on TAISK. That's nice and easy. And then assistance is just putting agents together. And that's sort of the next sort of bit that people are beginning to get quite excited about. And that's where effectively you can give them roles. So you could have like a marketing assistant, and that marketing assistant will have layers of agents sitting beneath it which are able to communicate and reason with each other in order to fulfill these more complicated tasks. So you could say to an assistant, create a marketing campaign for this epic podcast. And the first agent will then be tasked with like, well, what is a podcast? Do all that sort of stuff, do some research. The second agent will go, okay, well, these are some ideas and create a mood board and stuff like that. The third agent will look at the first few agents and go, actually, that's all wrong. We should go back to the beginning, and it'll do it. And it basically begins to take on the mantle of a member of a workforce. And so that's probably stuff that you're going to start seeing coming in probably around to the early parts of next year. They're already been built and tested. But.
I was going to say, yeah, it's a weird one. Like, again, through my LinkedIn feed, people are talking about, I think they use the Gentic or, AI agents. And I remember hearing about these and seeing these months and months ago. Yet it's a weird one with news and media, isn't it? Now, all of a sudden, it's like a few people talk about it. It's like, these brand new, it's like, but like you've just alluded to there, they've been around for a while. It's just, who gets exposed to it, who talks about it, how are they being used. But the concept of them anyway it's nothing new there, is it?
No, I mean, right back to, they've always been the target for compute development. How can we get computers to relieve us from our burdens, to do stuff for us? I think I do genuinely empathize with the audience that is being assaulted by all of this sort of AI chat. There's a lexicon of sort of new terminologies that are being broadcasted by sort of various groups. Few of them are actually experts in this field, and I certainly don't count myself as one. I'm just a member of it. But there is a risk that the same people who are flogging Bitcoin and other cryptos are now flogging AI and agentic AI. And so that comes with a whole sort of range of challenges in terms of like people who don't necessarily understand what it can realistically do at scale. Anyone can build at the moment an agentic solution that can operate in isolation as a demo, but it's not something that you can release to the public because it would just be too expensive from a processing perspective. So that's what we're working on. But yeah, it's challenging, right? When all of these new words and terminologies are expounded by people, a few of whom I would say really, 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 really understand it. But yeah, the underlying purpose of agentic AI or any AI is to get stuff done. It's just what stuff and how does it get done and how well.
That's it. I think the message in there is also avoid the snake oil salesman. There are a few of them around. But bringing this back in, we're talking about obviously about the future. And I am interested in your take in this because obviously TAISK Labs, you mentioned, TAISK is just one thing, and obviously that you're doing for school. But future-wise, what have you got in the pipeline? What is it that's exciting you, and what sits on the horizon for you guys?
Ooh, okay. So the great thing about TAISK is it can do loads of different things. The worst thing about TAISK is that it can do loads of different things. And so it's like a Swiss Army penknife with way too many blades and things on there that you have to sort of like ask your granddad, how does it work and what's it meant for? And the majority of the time, unless you're super prolific in terms of like building things, you're not going to use all the features on TAISK. And I think that's a massive push or offer, particularly to educators who have very, very limited amounts of time. And there's this wonderful book where they reference give a fucks. Everyone has a certain amount of give a fucks a day, and there's a limit. And I think teachers, especially when you consider what they're exposed to on a daily basis, that give a fuck limit is probably quite well utilized already. So one of the things that we're building for schools is basically standalone applications that use the technology we've built for the big companies, and then we make it accessible via these downloads. So we've got a new app coming out called Easy Report, and it's very cool. It's very clever. We actually spoke with teachers and asked them what they wanted, and they all agreed that they wanted something that actually generated good reports. And I'm not talking about the AI-generated garbage where you type in, Timmy's really good at chess, and then it creates this whole report about Timmy being good at chess. It's actually got nothing relevant in it other than that he likes chess, and the parents probably already know that. So instead, what we built is something that integrates with every single MIS. And so it can go into a school's MIS and it can pull out explicit data about individual pupils, and it can look at all that data and it can reason what data to utilize to generate this report. And those conditions will be determined by who the report is for. Like, is it an internal review? Is it a UCAS statement? Is it, a thing for parents? Is it something actually for the student to give them an update on, last quarter or term? And then you press a button and it creates it. And then as soon as it's generated, you can edit it in real time. You can talk with it. You can translate it. So it's just a really elegant integration with an MIS. So schools can integrate their MIS. It's all totally data secure. Create a report on any student for any particular use case for any given period, all in 4 clicks. So we're excited about that in terms of education. And then in terms of the other stuff that we're building or working on, sort of in the broader side for TAISK Labs, it is looking at moving away from computer-based interfaces, or not computer-based, but like screen-based interfaces. So what do I mean? I mean, we're doing a podcast, right? We're not doing this whole presentation by sending each other emails. A key aspect of that is voice and visual. I don't think we're far away from being able to talk to our AI or agents or systems. And that's where it gets really exciting, because you could have let's say you're a new teacher. How amazing would it be if you could have someone you could talk to, or something you could talk to, that is an incredibly experienced colleague in this space, if you don't have one around? And you could do the same thing for students as well. So I think the stuff that's sort of further away on the horizon is, how do we move away from like typing and screens? Like, how do we get away from the actual computer, but still get value out of these systems via things like voice and visual? And then in the short term, as in this week, easyreport.co.uk will be going live, and any school can plug in their MIS and generate reports for every single teacher.
It's fantastic. Sounds super, super exciting. I couldn't help but think, when you were talking about the talking side, like voices in head, I must have watched the Venom trailer before I came on to speak with you. It must have been on there. And it just reminds me of that sort of Tom Hardy and the voice in his head, in like the coolest way, in terms of having that conversation back and forward. But yeah, that's just where my mind wandered to, but in a very positive way, in a very, very positive way.
I hope so. I hope that, I mean, like, again, we've already covered this in depth, so I won't go back through it again. But yeah, I like the idea of getting people away from screens a lot. I don't think technology is great if it ensnares us. If it chains us to its sort of physical embodiment of an actual desktop computer or laptop. What I would love the idea of this sort of technology which makes it easy for us to distance ourselves from the actual systems and applications, but still get all of the value of the utilization. So yeah, voice, how we talk with it, whatever it is certainly super exciting.
Very, very exciting. So as we start to wrap this up, I've got 2 questions for you. One fun, one a little bit more serious. So let's go with the fun one with this one. So if you could design a dream AI feature to add to TAISK, no limitations, what would it be and why?
I think it would be something around user fear and user inhibition. I would love for anyone to be able to come to the TAISK ecosystem, whether it's on the app or in the future via voice, and just get what they need, whatever it is that they need, in a way which is not challenging for them on sort of any level. If, like, whatever their sort of barriers are to using a tool that should help them, I would love to find a way to build that. So yeah, I mean, so it's less of a feature, more of a dream, which maybe one day will become a feature.
It's what the question was, dream feature. Maybe it is, but you never know, possibilities. I mean, 5 years ago, none of us were sat here thinking, can you imagine in 5 years' time, we're going to be doing this with AI. We were all too busy thinking about COVID. And yet, look where we are now. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. So last question for you. If you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway about the role of AI in supporting educators and professionals through TAISK, what would it be?
I think the only sort of like, again, it's a difficult question to sort of find a single response to, but I suppose it would be around taking control. I think it's imperative that we don't provide the commercial opportunity to the big organizations by being guinea pigs or free users. We're effectively training suppliers to AI, who then determine how AI is utilized and then prescribing it to us like, battery chickens. So yeah, I think it's massively important that everyone finds a way to take control of the AI sort of narrative in their own way, whether it's playing with it or challenging it or building their own. So yeah, it's imperative that we, as a global community of users, find ways to own it, as opposed to letting others determine it for us.
I think that's a great piece of advice to end with. And we had this conversation previously about, who is in control and determining the future, whether it's teachers, whether it's governments, engineers, and having those conversations where we have an ownership and directionality of where we're taking this and what we want it to do for us. And I think that starts with the question of, well, what problem is it going to solve for us? And adding in the human element to that, I think would be, is a vital part of the conversation moving forward.
Yeah, don't let the bastards win. It's like if you ever go to a dinner party and that person over the table, like if you say this thing to them, you're going to trigger a response.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's that one person, like, okay, if I say this, they're going to go mental. So you don't say it.
Well, I would. I just want to see the response. Yeah. That's just me. Sorry.
Right? But like, if you, we're all in the eyes of the big companies who hold this huge amount of data. I mean, Facebook alone has something like 100,000 data points or 82,000 data points on every single user, right? They are able to understand what triggers us to do certain things. Like, that's why data is so vitally important. That's why Elon Musk bought Twitter. It wasn't because he gives a monkeys about whatever it is that is the press sort of release for that week. It's because of the data and the way that you can see how certain demographics, particularly as we're sort of increasingly looking to label ourselves and label others, are triggered and motivated. And so anything that you feed into a machine, that data is going to be captured and it's going to be utilized to sort of continuously build upon these biases. So yeah, being aware of the data challenge can only really be overcome if you're the one who owns it. So yeah, we're massive sort of encouragers for ownership of these applications.
You only have to go as far as I experienced today when my wife was like, "Oh, Red One, go have a look at Red One. It's a film that's just come out beginning of November. Thinking about taking the girls. So what's the aging on it?" So I go into Google, look at Red One, and I go for where I am in Dubai, I think it's Spring Souk Cinemas, and obviously it comes up with the type of cinema, and lo and behold, that was on my laptop. Lo and behold, scrolling through my phone, guess what ads I see on Facebook? Guess what's popped up in my Instagram stories feed? So prime example there about when we talk about surface level data, we see this all the time. It's like, and people go, how does Google know? How does this place know what I've been looking at or what to advertise to me? It's like, well, you just literally hit the nail on the head there, haven't you, in terms of the number of data points we have. So that could be...
The only way to break it is if we forget about labels. This is a whole different podcast.
I was going to say,
stop giving ourselves names and titles and just recognize we're all squishy, human-y, fleshy, bloody things. And as soon as you do that, you invalidate these databases, because then we're just sort of it becomes irrelevant. As soon as you prescribe labels,
bring back teletext. And for those maybe there might be a few people out there who have no idea what teletext is. I'm going to say this: Google it. You'll find out.
Exactly right. Exactly.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Alex. I really, really enjoyed this and learning more about TAISK and the types of things you're doing. If there are people out there, and I'm sure there will be, that want to learn more about this and see more about what you're doing and get in contact, where is a good place to find you?
I mean, the best place to sort of play with AI is TAISK.com. It's free to use. Build agents and chatbots. I'm on LinkedIn. Alexander Fay. Just search me. You'll find me pop up. Pretty easy to contact. I think we try to communicate with all of our users as best as possible.
Amazing. Well, all I can say to you is thank you ever so much for your time. Keep doing amazing things, and very much looking forward to the future of AI and what TAISK is doing in it and what it's providing for educators. So thank you very, very much for speaking with me today.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.